Guys, please confirm to me. All of you are getting my voice on screen. Those who are attending in online. Guys, please confirm to me. All of you are getting my voice on screen. Those who are attending in online. Please confirm to me, guys. All of you are getting my voice on screen. Those who are attending in online. Right. Right. Good morning, guys. And check it what we completed in the last session. So in the last session, just we completed modeled architectures. Here we are discussing there about our total modeled architecture for web application development. In that modeled architecture, what we are discussing, tell me, to prepare web applications, how many architectures are available? Two architectures are existed. What are the two architectures, can you know? All right, sir. One is like what there, model 1 architecture, another one is what there, model 2 web application architecture. Okay, fine. Now here we are having some discussion. What is the difference between these two? In model 1 web application architecture, in model 1 architecture, we will use a JSP page as a controller and viewport. We will use a Java Bean as a model part to include business logic. Model 1 web application architecture is also called page-centric architecture. Why? Because a single JSP page is controlling the complete web application. Model 1 web application architecture is also called as JSP front architecture. Why? Because a single JSP page is acting as a front controller in order to take requests from clients and process that request. In the Model 1 web application architecture, there is no clear-cut separation between controller logic and view logic. In a Model 1 web application, in web applications, if we use Model 1 architecture, then we have to use a JSP page as a controller. It's a existed features, its existing features are not sufficient to achieve all the controller responsibilities. Controller has, in web applications, controller component should have so many responsibilities now, but it is not sufficient for the existed features of the JSPs to achieve all the responsibilities of the controller component. So where in a JSP pages we have to write Java code to achieve the total controller responsibilities now. But writing Java code inside the JSPs now is against to the ethics of the JSPs. It is not suggestible. So this JSP page is not suggestible. The JSP page is not suggestible to provide as what their controller component. Right, sir. Next one is what there. Some diagrammatic representation are given there. Then after that, we have to go for like what there. Then after completion of this, there we have to understand. Next one is what there. Model 2 web up. Sorry. Close the door. Every day non-veg is coming, right? Fine, sir. Right. Now let's move on to the point here. Model 2 web application architecture, MVC architecture. Model 2 web application architecture is not any other one. That is what their MVC architecture only. In a Model 2 web application architecture, we will use a separate, we will use a servlet as controller. Observe carefully. We will use what there? A servlet as a controller. A set of JSP pages as what their viewport. And a set of business components as what their model components in general. In a Model 2 web application architecture, a servlet is acting as a front controller. So this architecture is called as what their servlet front architecture. In a Model 2 web application architecture, a servlet is controlling the complete web application. So this is called as like what their servlet centric architecture. First one is what their page centric architecture. Now it is what their servlet centric architecture. First one is what their JSP front architecture. Now it is what their servlet front architecture. In a Model 2 web application architecture, controller component and view components, controller component and view components are separated. View components are separated. It will provide loosely coupled design to the applications. In model 2 architecture, a servlet is acting as a controller. There is a Java program is performing all the controller activities. So Java is sufficient to perform all what their controller activities. So some diagrammatic representation here we understood clearly about this one. Then immediately I give in one point here. Now try to understand it now. Struts, JSF and Spring Web MVC frameworks are designed on the top of model 2 web application architecture. That is what their MVC. That's it. Right, sir. Then after that, let's move on to the next point here. Rules and regulations in MVC based web applications. If you want to use MVC design pattern, what exactly the rules and regulations here we have to follow? What are the various things here we have to follow if you want to go for what their MVC design pattern in our applications? Yes, sir. Clear to all of you know? Let's see this one. Point by point here we are going to understand. Now tell me, before this, now tell me, in MVC based web applications, what we have to use as a controller? What is controller? Controller should be what there? A servlet or maybe an equivalent component. Either servlet or an equivalent component. Some frameworks are using filters. In place of servlet, some frameworks are using what there? Filters as a server side, as a controller. It's possible. Anyway, not required here now. Here we can understand it clearly. Servlet. In general, it is what there? Servlet. As a viewport, what we are able to use there? As a viewport, what we have to provide there? A set of JSP pages or maybe some pages. Viewport is nothing but what there? Maybe HTML pages or maybe JSP pages or anything to provide some presentation parts. Got it or not? And business components we are going to define with what there? Business components we are going to define with what there? Model components. Yes, sir. Got my point or not? Now, all of you observe carefully. In MVC based web applications, I'm not talking about any particular framework. Base MVC. Again, I'm telling there, MVC architecture or MVC things are what they're a theory. But the theory is implemented by a number of frameworks. Struts is implementing MVC. JSF is implementing MVC. Spring Web MVC model is implementing what their MVC. So Struts, as per their comfort, they are implementing MVC in one way. As per the comfort of JSF, JSF is implementing MVC in its own way. Spring is implementing that MVC in its own way. But before all these implementations, first of all, we should know what is this MVC, what are the basic rules and regulations of this MVC. Guys, one more point I'm telling there here itself now. Number of times I said to you, JDBC is an abstraction provided by Sun Microsystems and implemented by all database vendors. Do you have any guarantee same implementation is going on in all the database vendor provided implementations? Same implementation is available in all the database vendors provided JDBC abstraction implementation? No, we cannot say that. Maybe Oracle might be providing some type of implementation. MySQL is providing, say best example, Oracle database provided implementation is not supporting updatable user sets and scrollable user sets. But MySQL provided implementation is supporting what there? Updatable user sets and scrollable user sets. Understand the difference, Kano? So implementations point of view, vendor to vendor, difference is available. But JDBC theory is same. JDBC abstraction is same. But implementing them or not implementing them or giving the same implementation or different implementation is totally depending on like what there, depending on the like all the database vendors. Best example I'm telling you, one more example. For JDBC abstraction, Sun Microsystems is also providing some model implementation. Sun Microsystems is also providing what there? One model implementation for JDBC abstraction. Remember this. MS Access database vendor is available, Microsoft. With respect to this MS Access now, they didn't provide their own implementation for it. Simply they are reusing the implementation what Sun Microsystems has provided. Got my point or not? So here also what's the point I'm telling there? Either implementing totally new implementation or reusing the existing implementation is totally depending on what there the database vendor implementation, database vendors interest. Similarly, here also what is the point I'm telling to you? Observe carefully. MVC is a theory. MVC is what there is a theory that is implemented by so many frameworks. How they are implementing now, as is exactly what MVC rules and regulations are available without having even 1% mistake. As is, this MVC is implemented by all the frameworks. Do you have any guarantee for it? No, no guarantee. No guarantee. As per the Struts people, without crossing the main line of the MVC, then Struts framework is implementing that MVC. Without crossing the main theme of the MVC, JSF is implementing that. But almost all 70% is okay. Implementation is right. But 30% implementation of this MVC is totally that frameworks vendors interest. They may maintain the same MVC rules and regulations, or they may violate one or two rules and regulations of this MVC as per their comfort. Yeah, even I can show some examples also for that. But anyway, this is not the right time to discuss about it. Later I will talk about it now. But point we have to remember, MVC is a theory. Another example I'm telling to you. Object orientation is a theory. Object orientation is a theory. C++ has implemented that object orientation. Java has implemented object orientation. And like what the next one, Python has implemented object orientation. C++ does allow multiple inheritance. Java does not allow multiple inheritance. Of course, Python is allowing multiple inheritance. If all programming languages are providing same object orientation, no, why these many differences are available? Here also the same scenario. MVC is a theory, but that is implemented as is or not depends on what their that respective product vendors. On the basis of that only we can decide clearly. Now let's see this point here. In MVC based web applications, we will use a servlet as controller. We will use a servlet as controller and a set of JSP pages in general, of course, including HTML pages also. Okay, a set of JSP pages as a view part, as what their view part. But here the rule is what? This is the information only. But the rule is what there? Rule is we must not interchange. We must not interchange controller and view components. We must not interchange controller and view components. That is rule number 1. Here we are understanding clearly. Think a minute about it. As a controller, if we use one JSP base, what will happen? As a viewport, if we use servlets, what will happen? It's totally against to the principles or not? Against to the conventions or not? So that's why we should not interchange these components clearly. So as a controller, we have to use servlet only. As a viewport, we have to use what there? JSP pages only. Why? Because controller responsibility is what there? Taking the request, process the request. View responsibility is what there? Generating dynamic response with very good look and feel. Got it or not? So presentation point of view, we require viewport. Processing point of view, we require controller part. Servlet is a suitable component for processing, and JSP pages are suitable components for what there? For a presentation. That's why we should not interchange these two components in our MVC based web applications. That is another point here we have to understand. That's okay, fine. Here violation I'm telling there. Struts 1.x version is available. JSF 1.x version, 2.x versions are available. Similarly, Spring Web MVC is available. All three frameworks are using a servlet as controller. No issues for that. Set of JSP pages as what their viewport. Up to that it's okay. But when we go for Struts 2.x version, Struts 2.x version, Struts only 2 versions here. After the second version of the Struts, the Struts was gone. Nobody is using that Struts at present here. But the point I'm telling here, in a Struts 2.x version, Struts 2.x version, in a Struts 2.x version, controller is not a servlet. Controller is what there? A filter dispatcher. Controller is what there? Filter dispatcher. It is a filter, not a servlet. Almost all servlet equal kind of capabilities are available for filters, but filter is not a servlet. Of course, in our syllabus that filters topic is available. I'll discuss with you. Servlets filters topic is available, that I will discuss with you. But the point what I'm telling there, violation I'm telling there. Starts to 2.x version is a MVC based MVC implementation only. But where it is not using what their servlet, it is using what their a filter. That is another violation that depends on the Struts 2.x version requirement. They're violating one or two rules and regulations of that MVC. Now here, this is like what I'm telling to you, the basic first principle here we can use. Leave this part here. Next one is after that, another content here. Now try to understand it now. In MVC based web applications, listen carefully guys. In MVC based web applications, every request must be trapped to, or instead of saying this trapped to, every request must be received by every request must be received by controller servlet, received by controller servlet only, controller only. Every request must be received by whom? Controller only. And every response must be provided by view only. Every response must be provided by view only. Sir, all of you are getting my point now? Every request must be taken by whom? Controller. Every response must be provided by whom? Viewport. This is MVC, basic MVC theory. But so many frameworks are violating this. Best example is what there, Spring Web MVC. That Spring Web MVC is not following this principle. In a Spring Web MVC, what happened there? The same front controller is generating response to the respective client. The same front controller, the controller is generating response to the client. Understand guys, what I'm telling you now? Viewport is not generating, viewport is not submitting response to the client. Front controller, viewport is generating response. But again, that response will be taken care by what they're taken by this front controller. Front controller is generating some response to the respective client. The Spring itself is violating this rule. But as per the MVC rules and regulations, what is the rule? You know, every request must be taken by whom? Controller, and every response must be provided by whom? Viewport. But in the case of Spring framework, as per the Spring vendor requirement, front controller is taking request. Front controller is executing business components now. Front controller is forwarding that request to the viewport. Then viewport has to generate response now, but it is not doing that. Viewport is again giving that entire response to what there for the front controller for the sake of rendering the response. For the sake of rendering response, and front controller is generating some response to the respective client. That's what I'm telling there. Frameworks, depending on the framework's requirement, frameworks vendors requirement, they may violate one or two rules and regulations of this MVC. But as you are the learner, we have to understand what exactly the rules and regulations of this MVC, but what exactly frameworks are following rules and regulations, no, that we have to analyze. But here itself, I'm confirming that some frameworks are violating these rules and regulations. No? That is one case here. Now another case I'm telling to you, Struts framework. Struts framework. In Struts 1.x especially, not in 2.x. 2.x is recovering from the terror. In Struts 1.x version, what happened there? As usual, you are saying that every request must come to what there? Front controller. But in the case of Struts 1.x version, first request will go to the welcome file only directly. There is a file, welcome file, directly JSP page or maybe HTML file is available. First request will go to that HTML file or JSP file, welcome file. Second request onwards only, that request will come to the controller. Struts is violating now. Struts 1.x version is violating now. But in Struts 2.x version, what happened there? Even if you submit request for the welcome file, no, first request will go to the controller. Controller will send that request to the welcome file. In case of Struts 1.x version, direct request will go to what there, like directly welcome file, a page. Request will come to the viewport directly. No, that is violation here. No. But as per its comfort, it has been violated. In JSF again, it was corrected. Yes, observe carefully. In the case of Spring MVC also, it was corrected. All right, sir. That is another point here we have to understand. Leave this point here now. Guys, observe carefully, all of you know. In MVC based web applications, everybody understand this clearly. In MVC based web applications, controller component will interact with the model component for setting data. Controller will interact with the model component for setting data as part of executing business logic. As part of executing what their business logic. Controller component will interact with the model component for setting data as part of business logic execution or as part of executing business logic. Understand my point here? That means controller will see, first of all, data is available with the forms. When you submit request from client to the server, front controller will take that request. Front controller will take the data. Front controller will send the data to the model component in order to execute our business logic. That means front controller will pass data to the model. It will set a data to the model. Front controller will set a data to the model. Front controller will not get a data from the model. Front controller will set data to the model. That data will be processed as part of the business logic. Then after that, what next one you know after completion of this? Alright, sir. Controller component will interact with the model component for setting data as part of business logic execution, and view components will get the data from the model components. View components will get the data from what their model components. Front controller will set a data to the model. View component is getting data from what their model. Sir, got my point or not? Okay, maybe you may have one doubt here now. If you observe the diagram here, you may have one doubt. Sir, controller is setting data to the model. Okay, arrow is available like this. Viewport is getting the data from the model. Okay, arrow is available like this. But we are giving one more arrow here. One more arrow is nothing but setting data, no? But just now you said to us, viewport is only getting data from the model, not for setting the data. But in the diagram, you provided one arrow from model to viewport, and immediately next arrow is from viewport to model. But this is against to the rules and regulations, no? You may have this doubt. So answer for this doubt is very clear. Try to understand it, no? Controller will set a data to the model component. Please recognize this. Okay, data is a setting to the model component. Then business logic will be executed. After that, I have not specified any arrow back to the controller. It doesn't mean we are not coming back to the controller. It means that data we set to the model, that's okay. Business logic is executed. After that, flow of execution will come to controller. Flow will come to controller. Then controller will come to what their viewport. But now I'm showing what their data navigation. Data is flowing in this direction. Means that flow of execution will come to the controller. Controller will forward that request to the viewport. Now viewport is getting data from the model, whatever the data is required. But what is this arrow, sir? No? Right. I'm giving clarity now. Try to understand it now. This viewport has to maintain some activities with the model component. Some notifications that viewport has to send it to the model component. Say for example, response is coming there. When response is delivering to the client, just before delivering response to the client, viewport wants to give a notification to the model. Now I'm sending response to the client. Now we are not setting data to the model, just we are giving a notification to the model. Now we are sending some data, some response data we are submitting to the respective client. Because of that reason, some notifications, or maybe if it is event delegation model, some kind of notifications, or maybe some informations we are going to provide to like what their model component, but actual data is not submitted from viewport to model component here. Always controller will set a data to the model, and viewport is able to get the data from the model, but viewport may interact with the model for the sake of sending some notifications to the model, not for the sake of setting the data. Sending notifications in the sense giving some notifications, giving some activity information to like what their model may note that activities, model may store that activities there, but there is not the meaning of user data is submitting to the model component. Observe carefully. User has given some data to the controller will send the data to the model, then viewport is able to get the data from the model. Viewport is not sending any data to the model. User data is not directly available to the viewport. Viewport is able to get user data from what there? From the model component. But this is for the sake of giving some small notifications to the model about to represent the statuses of the respective activity. For that purpose only here we are having like what there? This particular arrow. Let's leave this particular point. Now let's come to the point here. Then controller is for setting data to the model, and viewport is for getting data from what there? Model component. This is the third rule here we have to follow. Now, fourth one, rule number 4. All of you observe carefully. In MVC based web applications, both controller and view components. In MVC based web applications, both the control and view components, are not eligible to interact with databases. Viewport and controller part are not eligible to interact with what their databases directly. Get my point or not? Should not interact with the databases directly. In MVC based web application, both control and viewports are not eligible to interact with the databases directly. Okay, they must interact with the databases through model components. Controller will give an information to the model, then model will interact with the database. Viewport wants to get some data there. It able to give a notification to the model can interact with the database. Get my point or not? Viewport and controller are not for the sake of database interaction. Viewport and controller component there for the sake of interacting with the model component only. Only model components are eligible to interact with what their databases. Everybody understand this clearly. Leave this one now. Next one, rule number 5. Rule number 5. In MVC based web applications, listen carefully. In MVC based web applications, we may use number of JSP pages. Am I right or not? We may use number of JSP pages in viewport. In MVC based web applications, we may use number of JSP pages in viewport. But there is a condition. But all the JSP pages are Java code-less. Pages. All the JSP pages must be Java codeless pages. Java codeless pages. What is the meaning of Java codeless pages? No, without Java, that pages have to be prepared. The JSP pages must be prepared without Java. So, sir, got my point or not? This is what exactly the point here we can understand. All right, sir. Then another point here. Observe carefully. This is also an important point here, but try to understand it now. Now, this rule, almost all the frameworks are violating actually. But still MVC is having this rule, but almost all the frameworks are violating this rule. But we have to understand it clearly. What is the rule here? In MVC based web applications, we may use number of pages as a viewport. Number of pages as what their viewport. Okay. Where we must not provide page-to-page navigation directly. Where we must not provide page-to-page navigation directly. Where we must provide page controller page navigation. Where we must provide what there page controller page navigation. Yes, sir. Got my point or not? Where we must not provide page-to-page navigation, there we have to provide what there page controller page navigation. Yes, all of you are getting clarity now. Simple example. Why it is a case here? Easily we can understand. Now try to understand it clearly. For example, Durgasoft is the best example. Think of it. Durgasoft is MVC based web application. Tell me guys, just I'm asking to you, I'm giving option to you to relate our components, that theoretical components in the example there. Now tell me. Durgasoft, maybe so many members are available. Just I'm telling there, Durgasoft is what there MVC based web applications. Got it or not? Durgasoft is what there MVC based web applications. Now inside these, can you compare the components? No, which one is acting as controller and which one is acting as a modal pod and which one is acting as the JSP pages? Can you give clarity on it? Any comparison? Will you compare that? Now tell me, entire Durgasoft is controlled by whom? Come on, don't say my name here. Where I'm controlling? No, I'm sitting inside the class only, right? Now the total controlling is available with the front office or not? Directions now. Then first of all, we have to be reached to which place there. Without taking admission, you want to come inside the class, no? Even for inquiry purpose, at least you have to come to what there, come to the front office or not. That means everybody will take a first step into the office or not. That is exactly the controller. When we go there, then what our office people will do? What our office people will do? Okay, as per our interest, they will show a path to you to go for our resource. For example, if you come for Python classes, no, go to the front office. Then immediately our front office people will give information to you. Go to the fourth floor, there Python classes are going to be happen. If you come for the inquiry for Java, and they will tell to you, go to the fifth floor where Java class is going to be happen. Who is tracing the total paths? No, our front office or not? That is perfectly as what there a controller. That is perfectly as what there a controller. Yes, sir. Got my point or not? That's okay, fine. Leave this point here. Next one is who is model component? That you have to answer. Where business logic is going on, where actual content is going on. Are yaar, where trainer is a model. There only knowledge is available. There only business logic is going on. There only everything, every manipulation is going on. Am I right or not? Up to the classes now. The model is not involved. Model is not influencing like what their controller. Model is not giving any effect to the controller, but controller can affect the model. If controller sends request to the model, then only model will be executed. If front office people are sending students to my class, then only I can take the class. If front office people are not sending students to my class, no, I will not take the class. Got my point or not? So trainer is a model component. Then what about the viewport? No, presentation part here. Existing students of Durgasoft. Existing students of you. You are the like what are the JSP pages. Then finally, who is getting knowledge? Of course, you are the clients and you are the JSP pages. Finally, view with the client. That's it. Yes, sir. Got it or not? So existing students of the Durgasoft is what their view part. Then you are the showcases for what their new students. You are the model for not model. You are the like what their showcases for what their new students. That knowledge is gained by you from the model. Finally, presentation must be provided by whom? Who has to be appear for interview? You has to appear for interview. You only has to appear for interview. Am I right or not? To the companies. Who has to go there? You have to be go to the company. So you are the viewport here now. Okay, fine. Now understand this clearly. For example, I'm telling you, try to understand this clearly. Example. For example, I have a library. I have a cabin. I have a library. For example, inside my class itself, I have some library. As you are the viewport, do you have any responsibility directly to touch my library without my permission? If you want to get a book, then we have to contact with me or not? Or else maybe if you want to get some knowledge there, then we have to get the knowledge through me or not? You should not interact with the database directly. You have to interact with the database through what there? Through the model component. Point number one. Controller. Is it possible for controller to touch my database there? No. Again, they have to send request to me. Then I have to control. I have to interact with what the database. Observe carefully. No? Leave this one. One more point I'm asking. Then I'll try to understand it now. Fine. For example, one situation I'm telling you. Now try to understand it now. One student has joined with the classes now. Two students, for example, joined with the classes. Both are for core Java initially. No, both are not for core Java. Student A joined for full stack. Student B joined for what there? Only core Java. Example I'm telling there. Unfortunately, student A in the middle of the core Java class, student A who joined for full stack actually. Student B is for only core Java. Unfortunately, in the middle of the core Java only, student A got job. You don't want to continue with Durgasoft. Student A don't want to continue with Durgasoft. He got a job. Not possible to attend for the classes. Then student A and student 2 are having discussion. What is the discussion there? No, student B is requesting to student A, Array, you are leaving from Durgasoft anyway, but still your money is already you paid for full stack. No, can you transfer that money for my account? I want to learn full stack. Understand it? What I'm telling? This is a situation I'm telling you. If it is a case when student B is requesting student A, and if student A is granting that permission, that whole story is completed. Is that student B is eligible for full stack now? What they have to do? What they have to do? If student B, that means if they want to provide some navigation from student A to student B, how it is possible? Directly, is it possible between two students? No, not possible. Then student B has to get that navigation from the front controller or not, from the front office or not. Then student A has to request to the front office. That front office people has to divert that request to what their student B. So here the point is what I'm telling there, page to page navigation. That means you are the pages, not two students. Between two students, the data flow is not going to be happen. That page to page navigation is not suggestible in web applications. In especially in MVC based web applications, page controller page navigation has to be completed. Student A request to the Durgasoft admin. Durgasoft admin will accept that request and will transfer that amount to like what their student B. Yes, sir, all of you are getting my point or not? Sir, I'm telling to you, this is only example, but don't think it's reality. Don't go to our office there, sir. My friend is already gone. Now I want to take that admission license. No, Durgasoft is more than your knowledge. Why I'm telling there, please, if you observe your receipts now, at the bottom there is a note. Have you observed that note? Have you observed that note? Do you have any receipt with you? No? Available? One time, please check it. What is going? What is there in that receipt now? Yeah, people are checking for it. Please check it. It's a practical, too much practical. Come on. Nobody. At bottom there is a note. Yes, sir. What is that note? No. What is the note? Come again. Once a paid fee, neither transferable nor refundable. It's very clear, right? Very clear equation, right? So you don't have any rights to ask a return, a refund, and you don't have any right to transfer the payments. No, it's very clear that. Got it or not? That's what I'm telling there. That previously is an example only, not like what there, not in the point of Durgasoft business. Right, leave it now. But some people maybe come to me regularly. Some people are asking this. Maybe one or two cases I might be accepted. But anyway, that is not for the sake of that relation. Admin people are available, then we have to talk with the admin people, guys. But anyway, it's not possible. Strictly, I'm telling there. Okay, let's come for the content here. All right, sir. I think some people are still having question mark there. Sir, I transferred. You transferred to me. People are having that question now. Yes. Any of you are available like that? Any of your accounts are transferred? I think so. No, maximum. Why? Because I'm not in money related thing. Our admin people will think about it. Let's come for the next point here. So here the point what I'm telling there. Understand the context now. So many examples I can take there, but understand the context here. The point is like what there in MVC based web applications, we may use number of pages as viewport. Maybe HTML pages or maybe JSP pages, whatever it may be. Where we must not provide page-to-page navigation directly, where we must provide what there page controller page navigation. See, in one HTML file, if I provide a hyperlink for pointing other HTML file, if I click on this hyperlink, automatically navigation will come to what there another HTML page or not. That's my point here. But that is not going to be happen in MVC based applications. That should not be happen. But what is going to be happen if I click on one hyperlink, HTML page is available. If I click on this hyperlink, request must go to the controller. Controller will understand the target resource. Then controller has to bypass that request to the target resource. So it should not be page to page direct communication. It must be page controller page communication. This is actual rule of the MVC. But Struts framework, JSF framework, and Spring framework all are violating this rule. Nobody is following this rule. As I already seen the total architecture of these all the frameworks, no, then every framework is violating this rule. No framework is performing this particular rule. But MVC has given this is one of the rule. That's what I'm telling there. Frameworks may follow, may not follow all the rules and regulations of the MVC. But 70% of the rules and regulations are guaranteed. Remaining 30% of the rules and regulations may be followed, may not be followed, depending on the requirement of what that frameworks vendor. But as you are the learner, we must know what exactly that MVC rules and regulations. So these are the various MVC rules and regulations can be provided. Guys, now please confirm to me. All of you are getting clarity on these points now. All right. So then what is the first rule we said here? Now tell me. In MVC based web applications, we will use a servlet as controller and a set of JSP pages as viewport. We must not interchange control and view components. Why? Because controller component and view component are having their own responsibilities in MVC based web applications. That's the point here we have to understand. Next one is what there after that. No, in MVC based web applications, every request must be received by controller only and every response must be provided by view only. Right, so now this is second point here. Controller must take the request and process the request. Viewport must generate response to the respective client. In MVC based web applications, the controller component will interact with the model component for setting data as part of executing business logic, and view components will get the data from the model components. In MVC based web application, the controller component will interact with the model component for setting data as part of executing business logic, and view components will interact with the model component for getting the data from model components. Next one, fourth point is what there. In MVC based web applications, both the controller and view components are not eligible to interact with the database directly. They must interact with the database through what their model components only. Next one, in MVC based web applications, we may use a number of JSP pages in the viewport. Number of JSP pages in what their viewport. But all the JSP pages must be provided with Java codeless pages. All the JSP pages must be Java codeless pages. That means without Java code, with as much as possible less Java code. We have to prepare what their JSP pages. Next one, in MVC based web applications, we may use a number of pages as a viewport. We may use a number of pages as a viewport where we must not provide page-to-page navigation directly, where we must provide what their page controller page navigation. Yes, sir. All of you are getting clarity on these points or not? Okay, fine. This complete information is completed, sir. Here I covered model 2 web application architecture and as well as MVC architecture. Both the concepts here we completed. Now we have to come for the question. Just I want to give the heading is like what there. Frameworks is a heading here I'm going to provide, but here the question, direct question here I'm asking, do you know, try to understand it now. All of you guys observe carefully. To prepare web applications, especially web applications or normal applications. To prepare web applications, we have already, I'm going to give some things here. We have already server side technologies like servlets, JSPs, and so on. Next one, server softwares, server side technologies like servlets, JSPs, and so on, to prepare web applications. Server softwares like Tomcat, WebLogic, Wildfly, and so on, to execute web applications or server side applications. Understand my point here. Next one is what there. After that, to design or to develop, that means IDEs like Eclipse, IntelliJ, IDEA, and so on, to simplify, or maybe instead of saying that to simplify, then what I have to say there, and to develop applications in the easiest mode, in the easiest way, to develop the applications in what their easiest way. Okay, somewhat easiness we are able to get if you use IDEs now. That means to avoid compilation, to get auto compilation, to avoid setting path and class path, and to get like what their automatic setups and everything. So this environment here now. All right, sir. Even IDs are providing some database configurations also, something else. They are available there. Then apart from that, next one is what there. Then apart from that, now tell me, web application design models like MVC, MVC design pattern to get to provide a template, to provide a template, to provide a template for the application, and so on and so on and so on. So many things are available to prepare web applications. We have already server-side technologies like Servlet JSPs to prepare web applications, server softwares like Tomcat, WebLogic, Wildfly to execute web applications, IDEs like Eclipse, IntelliJ IDEA, and so on to develop applications in the easiest way. Web application design models like MVC design pattern to provide a template for the applications. Next one is what there, real-time tools, real-time tools like Maven, like what there, Log4j, and so on, for providing, then what we have to do there, instead of that, for simplifying all the development activities. We have these many things, and so on and so on and so on. So many things are available. Then still, then what is the requirement? What is the requirement to go for frameworks? What is the requirement to go for frameworks? That's it, guys. Now this is my question. Still, what is the requirement to use frameworks? What is the requirement to go for frameworks? What is the requirement to go for frameworks? This is my question. Guys, all of you are getting my question now? These many things are available to prepare web applications. Then still, what is the need? What is the requirement to go for frameworks? That's the question now. If you understand this question, answer for this question, then understanding frameworks is very simple. It may be any framework. Even I'm not specifying a particular framework now, Spring framework. It may be anything. Easily we can provide this. Right, sir? Then I want to show some showcases. Now try to understand it. Some examples here I want to provide. Now try to understand this now. All the applications I want to prepare by using MVC. 2 to 3 examples I'm going to show now. In all the examples, I'm trying to prepare what their MVC based applications. Okay, now try to follow this. Right, sir. Now here, my point is what there. I want to take like what there. Some 3 forms here I want to take. This is like what there, add form dot either HTML or JSP, no problem. Second one is what there, search form dot either HTML or JSP, no issues. Next one is delete form dot HTML or JSP. Front controller is available. Controller servlet. Now with respect to this add, there is a separate module. For the sake of search, a separate module. For the sake of delete, a separate module. Now here I want to give a logical name for this module add. Now I want to give a separate logical name for what there for this search, and for this module I want to give like what there delete. Controller already is available. What is the flow of execution here now? For example, if we submit request to the controller servlet, first of all, every request must come to what their controller only. The controller should be what there a servlet only. Every request must come to what their controller. Okay. Next one is like what there. Then after that, controller. Then what controller will do now? Now controller will check if the request is coming for add module or not. If the request is coming for add module, then immediately controller will forward that request to whom their add module. Inside this add module, actual business logic is going to be happen. But while executing that business logic, some other services are also be executed. While executing this business logic, some of the services are also be executed. What services are going to be executed here? We can understand this clearly. Of course, here we are having like at one side now, business logic. This is like what I'm telling to you, business logic. At the other side, services are going to be available. What services are going to be available here at the other side now? We can understand validations. Next one is what there security. After the security, like what there exception handling, and so on and so on and so on. Internationalization, exception handling, so many services, generic services. All these are what their services are going to be utilized. Right, nice. Next one, search form.html. When we submit request from the search form.html, now what controller servlet will do there? Controller servlet will do like what there? If it is from search, if it is from what there search, then immediately what controller servlet will do? Controller servlet will directly will identify this request coming from search module. It will forward that request to whom their search module. Inside the search module also be what is going to be available here. We can understand here business logic is existed here at one side. Along with this business logic, along with the business logic, some services are going to be existed. What are the various services which are existed here? We can understand now as T services. All right, so that services would be like what there? Validations maybe. Validations maybe. Then what next one? No security. Then after that exceptions, exception handling, and so on. So many services can. Right. Similarly, when I get a request from delete form.html, what controller servlet here? Now controller servlet will do like what there? If the request is coming for delete, if the request is coming for delete, automatically controller servlet will forward that request to whom their delete module. Again, in delete module, what is going to be happen there now? Observe carefully. In a delete module, as it is, this business logic and some services logic is going to be existed here now. Observe carefully. Okay. All right, sir. Now observe carefully here. This is my enterprise application, MVC based application. From module to module, what are common? Business logic is anyway varied. Here business logic is what they're storing the data into the database. Here business logic is what they're in the search, getting data from database. Here delete, what is the business logic? Delete some records from data. That's okay. But these services are very much common to module or not? Same logic is available for validation, security, and exception at module add, at module search, at module delete. Got it or not? That is one thing. Next one. If you compare one application to another application, controller servlet is very common. Controller servlet is what there? Very common. Let me check it. All right, sir. Now here, I want to copy this. Now here, example here I copied here. Later I'll give the theoretical information also. But first of all, like what I'm telling there, I copied this. Let me provide some other. I want to go for some changes, no, in our content. First of all, now this is like what they're not add form.html, not a search form.html. Just I want to prepare an enterprise application for what their mail application, mailing application I want to prepare. Simple example. Now this is like what their inbox.html, or maybe just I want to write like what their compose.html. Compose.html in the sense like what there that compose box here we're able to get where we have to type the data and we have to send that mail. Next one. Apart from this compose, no, then I want to get list of all the mails. No, that means like what their inbox. Inbox is for the sake of what they're getting the data. Inbox.html or JS, whatever it may be, something else. Next one is like what there. I want to get it sent.html. Sent box is available, which means you send from your mail. Like this here I prepared. Controller servlet is what there. Here changes are going to be happen. What changes are available here? Observe carefully. Let me have changes here. All of them I want to delete now. Now here also be I want to delete this content here. Here also we want to delete. Now what is the logic here we have to build there? The logic is very simple. If the request is coming from what there compose, now must forward request to like what there compose module. If the request is coming from inbox, then we have to submit that request to like what there inbox module. If the request is coming from sent module, then it must be forwarded to like what there sent module. Sir, are you getting my point or not? Right. Up to now, how many applications I have seen, sir? 2 applications I have seen. In place of 2 applications, let's assume 100 applications we have seen on MVC. 100 applications we have seen. In a single application, module to module, some services are very much common or not? Each application contains 10 modules. Each application contains how many modules? No, 10 modules. Observe carefully. Okay, fine. Each application contains 10 modules. 10 application contains 100 modules. 100 modules are having the same generic services or not? Same services. Services logic is no changes, no same. Exception handling is common, is the same in every module. Data validation is very same in every module. That implementation is fixed for every module. So 100 times we have to write, 100 times we have to manage the services or not? Every time we have to type over, we have to prepare the services or not? Logic I have to prepare explicitly in our own way or not? That is one point. Now 10 applications we are preparing, no? At each and every application, controller servlet is available or not? Come on, at each and every application, controller servlet is available or not? Controller servlet job is what? Taking the request, identifying the URI of this request, forwarding that request to the module. Taking the request, forwarding request to the module. Any other work is available for a controller here? If you observe these two examples flow of execution in both the applications, what is the job of the controller servlet now? Taking request from client and identify the module to which module the request is coming, forwarding that request to like what their respective module. So controller servlet logic must be same in every application or not? All the services logic must be same in every module in every application or not? So altogether, finally, what I'm telling there, if you take any application, or maybe 10 applications, if you recognize now, in all the 10 applications, 70% of the implementation is common. In all 10 applications, 70% of the implementation is a repeatable implementation. Controller servlet is common. All the generic services are common. Controller servlet and all the generic services, these implementations are taking 70% of our actual implementation. Only 30% is application specific, requirement specific. 30% is a client specific. Remaining 70% of the application is very much common in every application. Yes, sir. All of you are getting my point or not? Now tell me, what still developers are doing now? If developer wants to prepare 10 applications, no, he will take application one where he is providing 70% of the common implementation again with his own hands and remaining 30% client specific. Application one is completed. Then he has taken application two. Again, what he is doing there, he is again maintaining 70% of the application explicitly with his own hands. And again, he is preparing what the 30% is the client specific implementation. Like this in all 10 applications, no, even though 70% of the implementation is common, but still developer is preparing that 70% of the application as well as that client specific 30% of the application. Now just think a minute of it. In every application, 70% of the implementation is common, 70% of the implementation is a fixed. Think a minute about it. If you are getting the 70% of the implementations are predefined, if you're getting the 70% of the implementations of predefined, developer work is going to be very much simple or not? Developer can focus on only 30% of the implementation as per the client specific or not? 70% of the implementation able to get advantage or not? If it is existed predefinedly, if it is available predefinedly. Got my point or not? Just assumption I'm thinking there. If it is available predefinedly, then developer's work is going to be simplified or not? Instead of preparing 100% implementation, developer can focus on only 30% of the implementation. Then common implementation he wants to get as a predefined support. That's the problem here. The problem here I highlighted here. Now check the possibilities of getting the 70% as a predefined. Now check the possibilities of getting the 70% of the implementation as what they're predefined. From where we have to get it. Now, first one, check with the technologies. To prepare web applications, we are having number of technologies. What technologies are available here? Now tell me. Right, sir. Now here we are having servlets and JSPs now. Now tell me, any controller servlet or any services provided by servlets directly? Are able to get any controller servlet directly from servlet technology? No. Servlet API, servlet technology is providing generic servlet maybe, HTTP servlet maybe, or maybe like what the servlet interface maybe for preparing the servlet code. But no predefined servlet is available. No predefined servlet classes provided like controller servlet inside the servlet. So servlets are not providing that. Leave this one. Or any server is providing that 70% of the common implementation? Tomcat, WebLogic or Wildfly? No. Controller servlet component is not provided by the servers predefined. Even generic services also be supporting but not provided directly. We have to do some providing concept. Servers are also be not providing that. IDs are providing any such type of code. IDs are speed up the content only, but no, they are not providing that controller servlet as a predefined one. Leave this one. Web application design models like only MVC design pattern, all these things, just they are only theory only. They are not live code. They are not providing anything else. Understand my point, Kino? So real-time tools like what they're Maven, Log4j, or SLF4j, or something else now. There also be tools only, but they're not. They're supporting for the application, but they're not creating any code inside the application. No, all the things are not existed here. As guys, all of you are getting my point or not? So these many things are not providing any 70% of the common implementation of our application. Still there is a gap, there is a space, to get something in order to provide the 70% implementation or not. Exactly in this particular context, to provide 70% of the common implementation and giving option for the developer to get only 30% of the client specific implementation. Some third party vendors have provided, some third party organizations have provided their own tools to provide the 70% of the common implementation for the developers. That the third party vendors provided tool to provide the 70% common implementation is framework. The third party organizations have provided a separate component, a separate tool to provide a separate product, not even a tool, a separate product to provide the 70% of common implementation as the predefined implementation, as a built-in implementation. That tool or that products are called as what? Their frameworks. Struts framework maybe, JSF framework maybe, Spring framework maybe, anything else. All these are like what their framework. That is a requirement to go for what their frameworks. Straightly I'm asking one question to all of you guys. Now tell me, answer for it. What is the purpose of the frameworks? No. If interviewer is asking this question, now what you are going to respond? What is the purpose of the frameworks? What is the need of the frameworks? Even these many things are available. What is the need of the frameworks? All right. In application to application, 70% of the implementation is common. That 70% of the common implementation includes container component, that means not like that, controller component, and some generic services like what their data validations or security, like what they're apart from this, like internationalization, exception handling, and so on and so on and so on. All these are very much common from application to application. Their weightage is what their 70% in the real application development. No server, no IDE, no real-time tool, and no technology is providing this 70% common implementation in our MVC-based applications. So developers must provide the 70% and 30% client specific in every project explicitly with the developer's hand. It will increase burden to the developers. It will increase total development time. It will reduce productivity. When development time is increased, reduce productivity, and it will increase development cost. When development time is increased, automatically development cost has to be increased. Manpower will be increased. Automatically development cost will be increased. Got it or not? So to overcome this problem, some third-party organizations have provided their own products to provide the 70% of the common implementation as a built-in implementation and giving option for the developers to prepare only 30% of the client-specific implementation. The third-party organizations provided third-party organizations provided products are called as what their frameworks. That is what exactly the meaning of what their frameworks. What are the advantages of these frameworks? No. What are the various advantages of these frameworks? No. Number of examples are available. Number of advantages are available. So many. Number one is at our level. Number one, 70% is a predefined implementation in the sense development time is reduced or not. Instead of 100% of implementation, we are going to put focus on only 30%. So development time will be reduced or not. That is the main advantage of this frameworks. Development time will be reduced. I think in the introduction classes, I given one chapati mission example. Is a perfect example for this framework. Without chapati mission, how much time it will take to prepare 10,000 number of chapatis? No, 5 days. But with the chapati mission, matter of 1 day. Total time, development time is reduced or not? Similarly here also, if you are not using framework, 5 years of time to complete a project. If you use framework, no, 2 years of time to complete a project. Development time is reduced. When development time is reduced, automatically cost of the development will be reduced. Cost of the development will be reduced. Get my point or not? When cost of the development is reduced, time of the development is reduced, within less time, more results we can see. Within less time, more results. So productivity will be increased. What it will increase there now? Productivity will be increased. Not only these explicit advantages, no, predefined flow of execution will come between the components. All the generic services are provided by frameworks by default. Exception handling support or framework like data validation support or like what there and so on, security support and all. Some kind of support here we are able to get there. All the services we are able to get like a generic support. A predefined template we are able to get to prepare our applications. Got it or not? So many advantages are available here now. Because of all these advantages, no, our application development is becoming as very simple with the help of the frameworks. That's it, guys. Now that is a basic intention of the framework and basic requirement of the frameworks. Why I'm discussing about this much of points there, this many number of points about this frameworks. No, Spring is a framework. Before going to start a Spring framework, first you have to understand what is a framework. Understand my point here? Spring is providing controller servlet internally, dispatcher servlet. Spring is providing support for all the generic services. Validation support is available, exception handling support is available, security support is available, so many. The Spring has its layered modules. That layered modules are giving some support for application development. So that advantage is here we are able to get, guys. That's all, guys. Now this is about somewhat information, and tomorrow I'll prepare the document for it. Tomorrow I will give link for taking this document. No, then still I did not prepare for that. Today I will prepare that link, and tomorrow I will share that link to you so that you can utilize this. And tomorrow we are going to finish this total frameworks. No, then after that we are going to see like what their Spring framework and their internal content. How many modules are available, and along with the version by version, what changes are available in the modules, all the things we are going to understand. Then after that, that is Spring framework modules overview we will see. After that, we will start what their comparison. Why Spring framework is very good when compared with the Struts and JSF. After that, we will start to prepare programming with what their Spring framework. What components we require to prepare Spring application, that one by one we are going to discuss, right? That's all, guys. That's all for today. Then tomorrow we'll see the remaining point. Thank you. Thanks so much. And guys, very soon within 2 days or time, the link is going to be changed, guys. Just if any of you are registered for this course, not registered for this course, please go for registration of this course immediately. Because very soon the link is going to be changed. Okay, this is demo link. No, link is going to be changed very soon. Now please try to register for the course. Thank you. Thanks a lot.